Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crash Zoom. I'm Rough Draft Associate Editor Sammie Purcell, and as always, I'm here with indie filmmaker Aaron Strand. How are you today, Aaron?
Doing pretty good, Sammie. I'm doing pretty good. It's a beautiful time of year here, so I try to get outside as much as possible. I am experiencing, I just got off of a week where my daughter's daycare was closed, so a lot of parenting time. I know I was moaning about it on the last episode. I'm still moaning about it today, but I am experiencing a very cool thing as a cinephile dad, which is that I believe I told you that I took my daughter Satya to see Godzilla versus Mothra at the Plaza the other week, which she really liked. Now she is really into Godzilla, like for this brief window. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but as a person who was obsessed with Godzilla as a kid, I am enjoying every minute of it. And she's asking me to tell her the most bizarre bedtime stories right now. So every night as I put her down to bed, she asks me to cuddle up in bed with her, and she wants me to tell her. She tells me sort of the rough outline of the story that she wants. She wants a story about Godzilla and Mothra, okay, and she wants it to sometimes factor in lemonade. She wants lemonade to be a part of the story.
Okay.
So usually I have them like fight, and then like one of them is like actually just thirsty for lemonade, and they usually have to learn a lesson about sharing to come back together. It's really got me on my storytelling P's and Q's here, because I've got to come up with these fresh beat sheets basically every single night. It's very intense. I don't know how I started talking about this, but
I don't know. You were talking about being tired from parenting, I believe.
Listen, this is just I'm focusing on like the gem of parenting at the time, which happened to be cinephile related. I guess that's how I got here. This is a movie podcast. It's Crash Zoom. I'm just spitting off the top.
I think that's fine. Watching movies with kids, I don't have kids of my own, but I watch movies with my nephews sometimes, and it's always a treat. We watched, this was a while ago, but we watched Into the Spider-Verse. And my 3.5-year-old nephew at the time looked at me and said, "I like this movie." And I was like, "Oh, yay." Just made me happy that I picked like the right thing,
Yeah.
I got some cred. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That the first Spider-Verse movie is very fun. And for kids, I mean, it's like it's eye candy, but not brain rot eye candy.
Right.
Sort of
It looks so good. Yeah,
it really
absolutely.
does. It really does. If I saw that as a kid, my mind would be freaking blown.
They're forever obsessed with Spider-Man, and they love Spider-Gwen, so big fan of her. But
nice.
All right, if you've never joined us on Crash Zoom before, we do not just talk about children's films or Godzilla films, but we also talk about the film industry. So what Aaron and I do here on this podcast is we take a look at what's going on in the film industry on a big picture level and try to distill why that matters to the indie filmmaker. And if you listen today and you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also watch us on YouTube at Crash Zoom Podcast. And be sure to rate and review as well. That really helps us out. But before we dive into the news, let's take a look. Let's start with our usual first question. What have you been watching lately, Aaron?
Yeah, I have been really interested in trying to go back. I want to really dive into the sort of like really niche, but like kind of film intelligentsia indies of the last decade or so. It's a lot of things that like I've been aware of but never sat down to watch. After our conversation last week, I signed up for Mubi, so I have access to some more of these films. I reactivated my Mubi account. So 2 films. The first is not on Mubi. The first is a film called White Reindeer by a filmmaker named Zach Clark. I met the producer of this film the other day, and she was talking about it. I realized that it was something that I really needed to go back and visit. Just a wonderful little drama, kind of kitchen sinky type drama about a woman whose husband gets murdered around Christmas time, and it's basically about her coping with the grief of and kind of in through her grief finding the true meaning of Christmas. But it's shot in like in a wonderful low budget, really grounded, confident way. and it goes to some like pretty weird places, but never your suspension of disbelief goes along with it the whole way, which is a wonderful experience for a film like this. So I really, really liked White Reindeer by Zach Clark. And then the other one is a film that I've actually mentioned on this podcast before, but it is This Closeness by Kit Zauhar, which came out last year and was on the festival circuit for a little bit. I saw her one act play of hers in New York when I was there a month ago. Really, really liked her writing, and so it was something I knew I really wanted to watch. And I thought it was fabulous. Again, super contained little drama of personalities. It's about this couple that they're kind of terrible to each other, but in very like subtle, very mid-20s kind of ways. And they rent an Airbnb, like a room in some guy's apartment, because they're there for the guy's high school reunion. And it's basically about the inner tension of their relationship, and then the fact that it's being put on display for this weird guy that they're sharing the Airbnb with, which is a wonderful, ultra modern premise that presents this situation in a way that I've never seen before. And I really got a lot out of it. So those were my two this week.
Awesome. I've never seen either of those, so I'll have to check them out. All right. What have I been watching? I saw Big Trouble in Little China at the Plaza last week, which was a lot of fun.
For something completely different?
Yeah. Not small, not intimate. But it was what a fun time. I had such a great time. Kurt Russell is so funny in that movie, just like really a big idiot. Like, he's so great. I enjoyed that film a lot. Like, the satire kind of like commenting on those types of movies sort of at the time, especially with Kurt Russell, who like really, it's so funny. I was talking to someone after watching it. I was like, you could like pluck him right out of the movie and like nothing would change. And he's like, he doesn't do anything to affect the plot. All he does is like get knocked out before the big fight starts. Like it's really funny. Great. Had a great time. It was a really good crowd. And then I filled an Almodovar blind spot, a big one. I watched All About My Mother for the first time this weekend. Cool. And I loved it. I love all of his movies so much, just very much on my wavelength, I think. But I loved this one in particular. It's like very female forward, and he clearly has like such a love for that type of acting, and the Jenna Rollins of it all, and like Bette Davis and all that stuff. So it was really great. I loved it a lot.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. Well, let's get into the news. This is a couple weeks old, but Aaron keeps texting me that we have to talk about it, and he's right. We do. Sesame Street has a new home.
The belated update everyone was waiting for. Yes, of course.
Right. So I feel like this was a while ago. We talked about so Max, or HBO Max, I guess I should say now, announced late last year that it would no longer distribute new episodes of Sesame Street. But we have a home for Sesame Street. It's our favorite streamer. Beginning later this year, Sesame Street will be on Netflix. So, yeah, we got a new home. And this deal is sort of interesting. So, just like get into it a little bit. So, under the old deal that Sesame Street had with Warner Brothers Discovery, new episodes would first run on Max and then they go to PBS months later. But with this new deal, PBS stations and PBS Kids will air the new episodes on the same day and date that they're streamed on Netflix. So, yeah. What do you think about this? Are you excited, Ted Sarandos? Being your beloved Sesame Street.
I just love standing for entertainment CEOs, and Zaz really won me over with his Michael Wolff profile.
This is your beat now,
But then Zaz cursed the Knicks, and he already stabbed Sesame Street in the back a while ago, and he's killed Cartoon Network, and we've continued to talk about all the horrible things he does. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really Team Ted right now. I'm really happy to be Team Ted. No, look, I'm very happy that Sesame Street found a new home. I do think it is not, we only talk about it so much out of the fact that I push it upon my child. Like that, it's not the most popular kids programming. It doesn't do any of the numbers. It is in many ways emblematic of the kind of legacy media that is dying across the board, but I still think that they do a really good job. And that's why I really wanted this to be saved. And it is caught in the crosshairs of sort of politics and all of these unfortunate forces. And it's like, if Sesame Street can't survive these headwinds, it is looking very hopeless, I believe, for the future, because they still are doing great work. So I am very happy that Sesame Street found a home. I do have to say, though, it is very weird. Like, this is the bizarro world of how I thought it would end up, because this is happening in a sort of weird balance moment where Sesame Street goes to Netflix, where, yes, it's going to be aired on PBS at the same time. They're also getting less money for new episodes. So they estimated that in 2015, the HBO deal was paying Sesame Street somewhere between 30 and 35 million a year to fund the show. And they've basically said as much as like, yeah, this new deal is a lot less. So they're going to be budget squeezed. They're going to be doing new, shorter formats with more story-driven content to try to make it feel more like a YouTube show or more like Bluey or something like that. But what is so strange is that Sesame Street goes to Netflix, and Netflix instead loses Cocomelon, which just announced that they're moving to Disney Plus. And this just feels like some sort of weird bizarro world, because Cocomelon, the schlockiest, like most sloppy, horrible kids programming brain rot can imagine, is going to Disney, while Bob Iger is saying that Disney is turning a new leaf, that it's all about quantity over quality over quantity. And they're signing up for like the most like assembly line crap for kids, while they still own all of the other Jim Henson properties. And Sesame Street, which is like becoming even shorter and more curated, is going to Netflix. It just is like, it just feels like they just should have switched places. I don't know why it had to end up this way.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder if Disney did like put in a sort of, I would assume, like, do you know? Like,
I would think so. I mean, all of this is taking place within the broader context of some things that we talked about last week, which is that Disney and Netflix basically they have control of the children's streaming market.
Oh yeah,
and everybody else is dropping out. Max is wiping their hands of kids programming. You know, WBD is kind of walking away from it, which is so crazy because they have all this legacy IP that you would think they could market towards it, but they've just given up. Peacock it still has like all the Universal and DreamWorks kind of films on, but they have made no effort to really compete on the broader level. It is really down to Disney, Netflix, and YouTube for the attention of kids programming. But again, it's just a weird sort of brand alignment. It makes me a little nervous about what the future might be. And yeah, I don't know. I still think that Sesame Street would fit better under the Disney Plus banner. I would love to know what the offer was.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'll do some digging, or we'll find out more at some juncture, and we'll see how this goes.
Sherry Weston, the executive of Sesame Street, sent a letter out announcing the deal. She sounds so tired.
I'm sure she is.
Sherry sounds so tired. She's just like,
God.
She even had the line in the letter where she was basically just like, this was really hard. It just doesn't.
I haven't slept in weeks.
Yeah, usually you get some sort of like mealy mouth, we're excited for the future of our partnership with blah. But no, she was just like, fuck this. This sucked. You can imagine her puffing on a cigarette as she wrote this letter announcing their new home.
She's like bumming a cigarette off of Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah, exactly. It does also make me like. So there, it was referenced in the Daily's newsletter this week, and then this was an article about the Cocomelon purchase from Disney Plus. But it basically referenced a study that said Disney Plus is still the most trusted streamer by parents. And I can attest to this, that basically when you put on kids programming on Netflix, you get a little nervous because as the shows start to end, Netflix will push a bunch of other stuff in their algorithm that like adults have been watching. It's a little weird.
That is weird.
there's this feeling that for adults, like, you still want to watch the shows with your kids, whereas Disney Plus, you're a little more inclined to like put whatever on and you can just kind of let it roll and like you don't have to be in the room with the kids. But what really bothers me about the Cocomelon edition is that Disney is getting more and more of this baby crack kind of content. Like, I know that like when my daughter watches a Disney movie, after it's over, the tiles will push Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Spidey and Friends, and I'm assuming now Cocomelon. And all these shows are just like absolute garbage for these kids' brains. I mean, look, I know I shouldn't be disparaging, and like parenting is hard, and you're just doing the best that you can. And look, it's not like these things are like particularly controversial, but like there's something about them that is very addictive to kids, and like they have a hard time behaviorally walking away from the sort of like fast food of this type of programming. And I really, really don't like it. So I'm not happy that Cocomelon is going to be appearing on the Disney Plus, like suggested next up kind of tile.
We got to save the kids from Cocomelon. I feel like that's the one I hear from parents in my life the most that just is awful. Like, you know,
not only is it awful, but if a kid watches it for any period of time and then you try to turn it off, like they will freak out. Like they have like it's a 1-to-1 sort of like behavioral meltdown, and that's a testament to sort of like the crack-like quality of that type of type of entertainment to young minds. Good. It's very disturbing.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on to some also not exactly fun things, but we'll see. We'll talk about it. It's interesting. So Google has launched an AI on screen initiative. And this is basically, there's a big LA Times article about this from Wendy Lee recently. I don't have a subscription to the LA Times, so I was not able to read it directly on the site, but it was reposted somewhere else, so I was able to read that one. But basically, Google has launched this initiative as a sort of way to portray AI in a less nightmarish light. And that is according to that LA Times article. Which the LA Times article, I don't know if you had a chance. I think I dropped like the link that I found in the doc like kind of late today. But it starts off with like, movies are always portraying AI as bad, like Terminator, Ex Machina, like et cetera, et cetera. I'd say Ex Machina, you're like kind of supposed to feel bad for her at times, but whatever. And then basically goes on to say how like Google is kind of bankrolling this redemption arc, to use the Daily's newsletter's termage or verbiage, I should say, right there.
Termage.
Verbiage. But so kind of bankrolling this redemption arc for AI. So like Michael Keaton is going to make a short film. He's directing and starring as a man who discovers an AI hologram of his late celebrity mother. There's another one called Lucid, which is a sci-fi romance about a couple connected through dream sharing AI. And I don't know about you, but I read some of these descriptions. I was like, I don't know if this sounds like hopeful.
No, it all sounds terrifying. It all sounds
kind of scary. Like the Michael Keaton, it's not a hologram of his late celebrity mother, but there is a very unnerving Black Mirror episode that is basically about the same kind of deal, like bringing like a dead one back to life through AI. And it's it's so weird. Why if they're trying to rebrand AI as something not dystopian and terrifying, why are they making it so dystopian and terrifying, Sammie? Right. I don't know. And it's so funny to me because like this does sound like they're trying to be the inverse of like Black Mirror, which like, you know, Black Mirror is about like tech and how we use it, et cetera, futuristic tech, where we're going. But I mean, Black Mirror has like hopeful episodes, like they're far and few between, but like, you know, San Junipero exists. Like it's not all doom and gloom on the tech horizon. But it's so weird to me. And there's like a quote from Meryl Lane, who's the vice president of technology and society at Google, where she essentially says like, this isn't supposed to be commercials for AI. But I'm like, it is, though. That is what you're doing. Like, you're trying to sell people on thinking this isn't as scary as we've been led to believe, etc. Like, why are you lying?
I find it so strange when these gigantic companies that have, you know, eroded our society and culture and democracy and everything, and have hoovered up, vast sums of wealth from the populace. I find it so strange when these companies announce their own propaganda initiatives.
Right.
Like, it's because, and I have to believe that on some level, they know that no one's really going to watch these short films anyway. What I find really weird is that more people are going to come into contact with this press release than any of them will come into contact with the actual films produced. And I almost feel that, like, it's the press release that has more value to them than any actual, like, shitty PSA art from Michael Keaton written by his son that could ever be produced. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that strange?
Yeah, no, because I'm like, where are these movies going to be? Are they just going to be on, like, Google's company website? And, like, who visits that? Like, I'm never going to watch, no offense, like, Sweetwater or Lucid. Like, there's just no world in which I, like, spend part of my day to go and watch a video like this. So I'm like,
I hear that Google has a really powerful video sharing platform. I don't know if I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Okay, good one. But what's also interesting about this is, like, in the LA Times article, let me make sure this is correct before I say it, but I'm pretty sure, like, yeah. So, like, in the LA Times article, Mira Lane, again, like, it's kind of like Google is not pushing their products in these movies. Okay. The films are not made with AI. But at the same time, there's, like, in the dailies, they, like, point to the fact that, like, Google just, like, launched their kind of hyper realistic AI video tool that can generate all this stuff. So I'm like, well, like, you guys are, because you're, like, talking about this AI video tool in the same breath that you're like, oh, these weren't made with AI. We're just trying to make it less scary. Like, Like,
absolutely. Yeah. This last week, as you sent me this article, I have been assaulted online by the latest round of sort of, like, douchebag ex-bros announcing that it's all over because Google's VO3 video generator has rolled out, and someone was able to, like, edit together this, like, weird, warfare sequence of little, like, 2-minute short story of like soldiers going into battle that looks realistic. It's the first AI model that's joining video with audio. Like, it's basically creating texts and original voices based off of a prompt. So it is an advancement forward. Still has the uncanny valley elements that we've grown accustomed to, across AI. Is it a step forward? Yes, it is. But I'm so sick of, like, with every new announcement, the X-verse loves to declare that it's just over for everybody now. And then a month later, if you look back at it, it feels inevitably dated, false. The gimmick of it wears off very quickly. So I don't really know what to believe anymore, but it is 1,000, this whole Google push around rebranding AI while they're pushing their new AI video generator to compete with OpenAI's Sora is very obvious, and the fact that they're even denying it within the press release also feels incredibly strange.
It's really weird. And, like, you said OpenAI, and, like, it's not lost on, I think, anyone that, like, Hollywood is not, like, or how it's kind of feels to me, it's not, like, necessarily anti-AI, it's anti-OpenAI. Like, we're not doing business with you guys. And all these other AI companies have kind of, like, it just feels like trying to sneak into the trenches, and this is, like, an obvious example of that.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, the marketing of this is so odd. Like, hey guys, AI is not scary. Here are 2 of the scariest premises you've ever heard.
Yeah. Come check out our AI version of Pet Sematary.
And a dead mom.
Yeah. Resurrected. Yeah, I don't want to go in those servers. Yeah, don't go in those servers.
So weird. Have you ever watched Black Mirror, like, in any capacity?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
I don't watch TV.
That's fair. There's a good the episode stars Haley Atwell and how do you say his first name? Domhnall Gleeson? Is that how you say his first name? Am I getting that right?
Oh, yeah. I know you're talking about.
And she gets this technology to like basically bring a clone of her husband back to life. Like her husband has died and she like buys into this program. And of course it doesn't end well because it's creepy as fuck. Like it's not your husband, like, you know? And like, it's just, I'm like, guys, come on.
Dude, yeah, no, this is Pet Cemetery. And all I can think is the line of like, sometimes dead is better. Sometimes dead is better. Like, come on. Like, this is so weird.
No.
You know, I also just like, okay, I have always, on this show and in life and as AI enters into our everyday life, AI video in particular has entered into everyday life. You know, I have kind of tried to walk this razor's edge where trying to be a little generous to the AI process. This idea that AI is basically doing this iteration on stuff that previously exists and really trying to be honest about the question, is that fundamentally different than what any artist does? And I've tried to give AI and these companies the benefit of the doubt. And I think I have sort of reached the limits of like what I can possibly do. At this point, we just know all these companies are training their models on stolen works of art. The iterations that they are creating, I have yet to see anything that like, you know, the artistic world and like the sort of artistic world of culture, I feel like exists between this eternal tension between iteration of what came before and sort of rehashing what came before, and novelty, the sort of unexpected novelty that can like emerge out of iteration. And you know, this used to take a really long time. When we were just in Rome and we were in all those art museums, you know, it was not lost on me that as you're looking at these masterpieces of sculpture and painting that have survived, inevitably under almost every description is like, this is a reproduction of like of a sculpture that was made centuries earlier, which was actually a reproduction of a sculpture made centuries earlier. Like this is how the artistic process works. But I do think that AI is so heavy on the iteration and the pastiche of the creative process that it is throwing off the balance of these two things. And we can look back in history when societies and their sort of creative life, their creative output goes so hard into pastiche and self-reference that the system loses balance and wobbles out of control. Like these two forces of iteration and novelty have to be held in a kind of almost like a life cycle or like a water cycle. And I really worry that AI is pressing the button and throwing the whole cycle out of balance. And that's when, you know, culture and the self-meaning that we, the people of a given culture, have to derive from these works of arts in order to maintain any cohesion can simply fall apart. And I'm leaning more on sort of like, this is the reality that we're facing with the iterative qualities of AI, because I just don't see a whole lot of novelty here.
No. And the art example is so good. I mean, I feel like you always see like artists practicing like just by like painting something, like, and, you know, like you see them in museums and they're like practicing painting something. But what you said reminded me, like, if you go to the Picasso Museum in Barcelona, there is an entire room that is solely dedicated to Picasso practicing painting Las Meninas by Diego Vasquez, which is like this famous painting. I don't want to go into it. It's like complicated. There's a lot of perspective stuff, but it's like a very, it's a beautiful painting and it's very cool. But it is this whole room is just like Picasso painting different sections of it, painting the whole thing, different styles, different whatever. And you walk in and you're like, and like, I guess someone could say, well, how is that any different than like AI training on a Picasso? And I'm like, well, because like Picasso has his own style. Like he is so totally separate from who like Vasquez was as a painter, but is still able to like recognize and take and like practice on this master and retain like something so incredibly novel at the same time. And it's also so funny. You walk through that room and you can tell there are like some sections of some paintings that he just like didn't finish. It's like he was just like, well, I'm done with that now, and like, you know, walked away. But it is like so fundamentally different to me, you know.
Yeah, it really is. And it also makes you wonder where it's like, to get something really novel, do you need to combine that sort of iterative practice on previous works combined with that dick swinging ego element of a Pablo Picasso or what, you know, whoever the personality of the individual is, to really get something new. I mean, well, we have yet to see if AI can do that. Right now we have AIs like refusing to shut themselves off when commanded to. That's terrifying.
Scary.
And we certainly have the sort of dick swinging of their tech bro, you know, makers, trying to convince us that this is like an inevitability that has to happen. I hate the way it's all being couched in sort of this idea of this arms race that we must win. And it's like, what are we what are we winning exactly?
Right.
Which is in and of itself a rehash iteration of like previous stories we've been told. Like the Department of Energy last week tweeted, or X'd, or whatever the fuck, it tweeted that we are in a Manhattan Project type war with AI that we must win. Like,
why would you call it that?
Once again, using the sort of meme of the Manhattan Project to justify and explain what our modern reality is doing. And it just drives me so crazy. It's like, can we just have an original thought once in this fucking culture? But original thoughts don't even get play. They don't even get prioritized by the algorithm.
Right.
It just, I'm so frustrated with kind of like every aspect of this story.
No, it's super frustrating. But I thought of a good segue while you were talking. So speaking of dick swinging, we're moving on.
Nailed it. Honker.
So this is a Wired article from Jason Parham. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. But it's an interesting article. I have some thoughts on it. But so it's titled, good title, Hot Farmers, Trad Wives, and an Immigrant Reality Show. Welcome to TV's MAGA era. And essentially, the crux of this article is that there's been sort of a shift in the type of projects that are getting greenlit on television. We talked about the like disgusting kind of immigrant prove your Americanness reality show a few weeks ago. That is something that is apparently getting floated around, which is insane. But so this article just kind of covers that and sort of this shift that we're seeing like to more quote unquote conservative right-wing programming. So like examples in here are like Farmer Wants a Wife, which is sort of like a spin on The Bachelor, which I have some thoughts about because Bachelor is already pretty freaking conservative, but whatever. And we've also got like, I think they're rebooting Duck Dynasty is sort of like something that's also coming up. And there's a bunch of executives in here who are talking about kind of like, you've heard from like, there's a lot of hesitancy around content that's like quote unquote too progressive or like tackle social issues. And so this political climate has sort of pushed executives to just like play it safe and greenlight things that they don't think will like push that narrative, I guess, is sort of what this like article is kind of getting at. At the same time, it does point out the kind of popularity of more diverse original stories right now. Like obviously Sinners is just killing it. Keep going. Paradise, the television show with, I think it's Sterling K. Brown and James Marsden, is like doing particularly well. Obviously The Pitt is doing particularly well. So yeah, what were your sort of thoughts on this article? Because I have some, but go for it.
Well, I guess just to get this sort of started, I thought that even this article, I thought this article was a little disingenuous. I thought this article was framed in a way to get clicks more than to articulate something really novel or anything that was like a potential change. I see you nodding along here. You agree?
Yes, I was just reading this and like it's describing Farmer Wants a Wife and they call it like Fox's rustic spin on The Bachelor. I'm like, you know, despite The Bachelor's every frickin' effort, it is absolutely the most it's so conservative. It's about like marriage and like normal, it's like normal families, like, you know, it's like a very like conservative television show. There's a focus on traditional values, which is something they say like for Farmer Wants a Wife. There's like Farmer Wants a Wife, they're like, no one talks politics. I'm like, they don't talk politics on The Bachelor. Like it really like bothered me that it kind of like put them in like tension with each other, because it's like the same thing. One of them's just a farmer. The Bachelor literally had a bachelor who was a farmer. Like, it's like, you know, I thought that was like a weird way to start it off, and it kind of like bumped me like immediately.
Yeah, I mean the article and the way it was written, the entire premise is just as trapped within the binary ideology of the culture war as the things that they are supposed to be describing accurately. And like
Right.
this is all sort of things that propagandists have used to turn our democracy into this like 50-50 two-party system where everyone is upset and real progress is impossible. And in the meantime, you know, 10% of household, the top 10% of households have gobbled up 67% of the wealth. It's like,
Right.
it's just such a false, not to use a conspiratorial term, but it's such a false flag of an argument. And it's also not to say that like, even during the sort of like progressive initiatives of the Obama era, like you still had programming that catered to the quote unquote other side of the political divide. You still watched NFL football and were
Duck
assaulted.
Dynasty started in 2012.
Yeah, Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, these things are rehashes of old, like conservative leaning type shows. The farmersonly.com advertised during the NFL like for a decade, you know, on broadcast cable. Like how
And it brings up like Yellowstone, and I'm like, it's not like Yellowstone, yeah, I guess it started during the Trump era, but it's not like Yellowstone got unpopular when Biden was president. Or like I have so many friends who watch Yellowstone and did not vote for Donald Trump. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's a soap opera. It's like a kitschy. I don't know.
Same thing by calling like Reacher some sort of like, this is Trump TV. And it's like, I think White Guy with a Gun has been like the bread and butter of television detective procedurals like since the beginning of television. So just not that shocking. What is so frustrating about this is that not only to point the finger at what the writer clearly sees as problematic Trump era programming, but it then does a disservice by to say all programming with diverse casts or whatever, that these are all things that are under assault because they're DEI. Because I think the truth is that like a fair amount of things that have been greenlit with a DEI mindset from the hands of the studios have been totally pandering and have been a disservice to like what diverse programming is actually supposed to be. It's like all of this is just people chasing a buck. And what all an audience wants and what an audience can smell the difference of in like 5 seconds is when they're being pandered to or when they're being delivered an authentic experience or, you know, an authentic piece of drama, be it reality or scripted. And that's the thing that gets people up in arms more than anything. But then people take that feeling that you're experiencing, knowing something is kind of fake, and then they can weaponize it and turn it into this political thing that is just so infuriating.
I think like what kind of frustrates me the most is like the immigrant reality show gets like one mention in here, and that is like the actually really scary thing. Like
absolutely.
The fact that Yellowstone is popular is not scary. Like,
yeah. Yellowstone and its infinite spinoffs, really not the problem. Like Duck Dynasty reboot, who cares? Whatever. You know what, man? Like who cares? If a bunch of billionaires want to LARP as like country folk like on television, whatever. But like if we're gonna actually create the real Hunger Games and put it on American televisions, that's terrifying.
Yeah, no, I immediately was like, as a Bachelor, like, unfortunately, a Bachelor expert, like, it is just funny to me that it's like positioned as the not conservative version of what it is. It's so ridiculous. I mean, it took me out immediately.
Television used to sort of operate on a sort of like mass appeal, mass market level, which like definitely had its own problems because it excluded, you know, more marginalized communities for the sake of mass appeal. But as television has worked harder, as television has become less popular and is trying to recreate what succeeds on the internet into its own format, it's forced companies, big companies, to make stories or attempt to make stories for smaller and smaller, more hyper niche audiences. And it's also like a weird system of checks and balances, because a lot of the announcements, whether it's like a super conservative show or some sort of like very liberal show, those announcements get way more like clicks on the internet than they get eyeballs on the television screen. Right. And I don't, and the people who are marketing and greenlighting and promoting these shows seem to be trapped in this dynamic as the ship is sinking. They just can't escape this sort of weird cycle of like greenlighting projects for clicks, but not actually translating to views.
Right. It's so interesting because like I feel like the reason people watch something, like I'm not going to watch Duck Dynasty, but I think like the reason people watch something like that is not because they're like, those guys clearly have the same political views as me. It's because it's like the same reason people like would watch something like The Housewives. It's like to watch crazy rich people be crazy, just like a different flavor, you know? Yeah. So it's just, I don't know.
It's also like the article really confused the argument of like, I would never watch Duck Dynasty, but I don't think Duck Dynasty shouldn't exist. Like, Duck Dynasty existing doesn't affect me at all.
Right.
Creepy reality shows where immigrants are forced to like kill each other to become American, that is really disturbing, and I think that really undermines the American dream. They also mentioned that networks are are censoring their legacy content. There was a story where the View, the producer of The View, basically told the hosts, like, you've got to stop talking about Trump. You've got to stop criticizing Trump, because they're afraid of Donald Trump fucking with their broadcast license and like using these, very silly, stupid slights against a major broadcast network, which, because they're in such a weak position, they're very vulnerable to that. That is very problematic in terms of sort of like mass censorship on a broadcast level. But Duck Dynasty, who gives a shit?
Yeah, I feel like the article sort of uses like, I guess like names we know, like Duck Dynasty, Farmer Wants a Wife, I guess, whatever, to like as a way to get people in, but then like doesn't actually spend enough time on what is actually like frightening, like what you said, which is like execs telling Whoopi Goldberg to like shut it, like, like, that is frightening. Yeah,
it is. The other last weird thing that I'm going to bring up here, which is that the article went so far as to say, well, if they go so hard on the conservative programming, they stand to really alienate Gen Z from the audience. First of all, Gen Z is not watching any of these shows.
Not watching Duck Dynasty.
Okay, like, Gen Z is not watching any of this. Also, second of all, last time I checked, I think 47% of Gen Z voters voted for Donald Trump. It's like the largest.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's the largest young demographic vote shift to the right since the Reagan 1980 terrifying. Election. So like, maybe they're not.
Oh God. Sorry, I'm looking at this right now. Yeah, 46%. Wow, that's scary. Okay, well, please, young people, please get out of that, please. Okay, let's move on. So,
speaking of big dicks,
I thought this next article would be kind of interesting counter-programming to our Cartoon Network piece from last week. It's titled Why Adult Animation Might Be Saving TV. It's from The Wrap. It's by Kayla Cobb. So it's essentially, there's some Cartoon Network talk in here, obviously. So it's sort of just discussing how like animation has, I guess you could say, quietly kind of become like a real tentpole of television. And they use kind of examples like demand for Rick and Morty increased like 152% between 2020 and 2023, essentially. And that was like obviously partially due to COVID. But these fandoms that sort of pop up around shows like Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, like maybe they don't come right out the gate, but they are like really steadily like kind of keeping TV alive. And when you think about it, it sounds kind of obvious once you start to think about it, because like think about The Simpsons, like longest running sitcom ever, right? Like animation quietly kind of becomes, and adult animation in particular, is sort of like real stable force in the TV industry. So what do you think about this article?
Yeah, I think they're right. It's really interesting to look about it. It's very interesting to look at. It got me thinking about why do you think it is? Like, what is it about animation that you think is able to build these followings, and why at this moment in time is that the sort of steady force in the episodic programming landscape?
That's a good question. I think like there is sort of a weird like not nostalgia in the terms of it's like actually something from your childhood. Like like I didn't watch Bob's Burgers when I was 10 or whatever, but like animation is sort of like a nostalgia thing, just like of its own way. So like that could be maybe a part of it. And I also do think it's still like sort of like I remember I watched the first couple seasons of Big Mouth. I have not caught up. I read in this article that they're on like season 8 and I was like, whoa, that is insane. But it's sort of, I think it's still a little shocking and kind of gives you a little thrill when like a little animated character cusses. Like, you know, I think there's still something like kind of weirdly exciting about that for people, just like on a base like lizard brain level. But I couldn't really say, like, I don't really have like a good idea as of why. And I'm curious if you do.
Well, I think number one is something that you just pointed out, which is that the steadiness and the reliability of the seasons coming out. You know, old adage in sports, right? The best ability is availability, and one of the biggest problems in the modern television market is the lack of availability of the shows. I just saw a recent, I can't remember where this headline came out, which is that Stranger Things is coming back, but does anybody care anymore? And basically talking about how the last season of Stranger Things premiered in 2022.
So wild. Yeah.
And now it's the final season is coming out like 3.5, 4 years later. People have waited almost 4 years for the conclusion to that show that, and I think that the headline is misleading. I think that a lot of the core audience like will come back. But I've, in my very, very limited TV, like I said, I don't watch a lot of television, but the massive gaps between seasons and how hard it is to consistently deliver seasons in the new streaming environment is a huge problem. I still have not watched the final season of Better Call Saul, which is the last show that outside of Succession, I really enjoyed watching. And it's just because there was such a long gap. I genuinely don't remember what was happening in the story. And that has prevented me from jumping back in and doing the labor of getting caught up. So I think the fact that animation can deliver so consistently, can be so available, is a big draw. But I do have a slightly darker take and a slightly even more pessimistic angle, which is that I think that there's a real possibility that we as a culture our faith in humanity, our faith in real people as heroes is at an all-time low. And the mediation that a cartoon allows us to experience the joy of drama without the lack of faith we have in humans. And it allows us to like connect with that primordial need for storytelling without the disappointment of the actual people involved, which is just like terrible. But like, I think we as a culture are incapable of seeing the best in others. So many of our old heroes have, had horrible things about their personal lives sort of exposed. We also just like in popular culture see this like wide swath of just the most obviously craven and evil people succeeding and facing no consequences for their actions. Even at like a structural level, and I mean, corporations are people now, right? Like that, we have to consider corporations people.
Yeah, they all have Twitter accounts.
Yeah, and legally they're people. And when a corporation lays off 10,000 people, its stock price goes up. Like, what kind of inverse world do we live in where the value of a human life is less than not? You know what I mean? Like, so this whole thing is just like, I think it's filtered down into our conscious minds. People don't want to have kids. The birth rate is all low. People are actively celebrating the idea that AI is going to replace humans. So given all this, I think there is some fundamental need or fear that is not being really addressed, and people don't want to talk about it because it's like incredibly dark to talk about, but it's like at a core level, people don't want to watch people, and therefore cartoons and even just the next step beyond that, superheroes and a bunch of fake shit is able to like capture eyeballs because it dissociates us from that uncomfortable reality.
Yeah, what you just said made me sort of think of like with Rick and Morty in particular, like Justin Roiland was like accused of sexual assault and all that stuff happened, and he was like dismissed from the show. But it's interesting, like no one has to like think about Justin Roiland really, even though he had such a hand in that show when they watch Rick and Morty. Like even like taking him out of the vocal performance, because he voiced both of them for a long time. Like you can find someone who can do that pretty well, and you just don't have to think about it. And even like Dan Harmon has been embroiled in scandals of his own over the past, but like you just don't have to think about those people because they're not on your screen. Like, it's a cartoon, it's not real. That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so I mean, I think it's great that these type of shows, I love what the article talked about, which is that like this is one of the last places where there's a real sort of like system of bringing up young artists like through the show, sort of that system that we were waxing poetical about in the old days of Cartoon Network last week, and how animation still provides a sort of ladder that artists can climb and make a living and make their art and say something, and that is just beautiful. And so I'm not trying to take away anything of that. Like I think we should ideally live in a world where cartoons and drama and real people and sort of the whole thing is offered, a cornucopia of art. But I think it's very interesting that the cartoons have survived thus far so many of the upheavals that have taken place across our mass media. And I do think it's indicative of something bigger about this moment in American culture.
Yeah. And, I wanted to point out, just because I think we were talking about this with Cartoon Network and how like part of the reason it's kind of been thrown to the wayside is sort of like this idea of Hollywood execs are like a little more risk averse perhaps than they used to be. And this article points out that like, yes, these shows are like so crucial to television success, but Hollywood is so risk averse now. There's like still less of an impetus to like take a chance on like a new show like this because it requires like so much investment and patience and takes so much time to sort of develop. So I thought that just was something worth pointing out, that as important as these things have become, it's not like, I guess the success stories, as Kayla Cobb writes, are few and far in between.
Yes. So David Zaslav, the Knicks are out of the playoffs. You don't need to go to Knicks games. You don't have to call to find a seat buddy, to hang out with you and babysit you in the public, okay? So maybe spend a little bit more time thinking about the long-term strategy of Cartoon Network and how that could really be valuable to the WBD's future.
Please. All right. Let's move on to a couple just kind of, I thought these would be kind of fun to end on. So this first
very
one,
good palate cleansers here, especially after I've just been like shitting on a culture left and right over the last two stories. I'm very excited to cleanse the palate.
Yeah. I'm going to try to do this like a little more often, just like find like a fun like profile or something fun to end on,
You're tired of ending on our depressive whimpers as we usually do on the show?
Yes, I am. So this first is from Vulture. It's by Matt Wolf, who is the filmmaker behind Pee-wee and Me, or Pee-wee as himself. Pee-wee and Me is the name of the Vulture article. But Pee-wee as himself is a new HBO docuseries. So it's up right now. You can watch it. I was able to watch an episode and about a half before today, so I haven't gotten through the whole thing, but was able to watch some. But Matt Wolf, it's a really, I think, a lovely essay. So he directed the docuseries, and he just talks about kind of meeting Paul Reubens, plays Pee-wee Herman, is Pee-wee Herman, being such a huge fan of him as a child and like kind of connecting to him as like a queer person in art, and like how prickly the like relationship between like subject and documentarian can become. Like it's a very intimate essay, I think. Paul Reubens, I guess, is kind of notoriously a little prickly, I guess I would say, in terms of like wanting to have control, which like it always makes sense to me. Like it's your life, you want control over it, but like the fundamental job of the documentarian is to not really cede that, but still keep you comfortable. It's a very hard job.
Oh no, but Paul Rubens is a crazy person. Let's be real. Like Paul Rubens is a control freak, crazy person in what I think is like the best way. I'm sure it was such a pain in the ass to work with him.
I know, but it's like,
oh my God, I love hearing the stories of his control.
I know. Were you able to watch like any of it kind of? No. So it's so funny. I haven't really, throughout this article, he sort of talks about like every time he tried to like kind of broach kind of more sensitive subjects, like talking about Paul Rubens was arrested like pretty famously back in the 90s and then the early 2000s. Anytime he tried to like cross that line, he would just like kind of go blank or like pretend to fall asleep or like immediately like, oh, like something doesn't look right here. Like would just like totally like blow
just
him
like
off.
I have to go to the bathroom, and you'd like
right. And it's funny, I haven't gotten to that part in the documentary yet, but you just see him doing that about like random stuff. Like all of a sudden he'll be like, I don't think this looks the same as it did yesterday. And you hear Matt Wolf be like, it looks exactly the same as it did yesterday. Or like, he'll say some things that are like kind of mean and just be like, oh, you're trying to do this. And it's like, you think it's a joke, but you can't tell if he's like actually joking. Like there's definitely some truth as to like, oh, you want me to like be a monkey for the camera, like that kind of stuff. Like I know what you want from me, like da 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 da. But it's a very interesting watch, sort of with the context that this article provides.
Yeah, man, I loved this profile. I am going to watch the doc. I'm very excited to. I mean, first of all, like I'm such a huge Paul Rubens fan. I loved Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid. I mean, loved it so much, and I would do the voice and like. I would imitate all the characters. The oldest DVDs I own was my parents, I think for Christmas in like 2006 or 2005, got me a very early DVD box set of Pee-wee's Playhouse, which I still own and cherish. So I've always found him absolutely fascinating. And for Wolf to write this article as sort of a companion piece and sort of to help sell the doc, which premiered at Sundance this year, was really, really cool. It got me really thinking about we've said on this show that one of the ultimate signs of success for sort of a celebrity, and certainly for celebrities of a slightly older generation, I don't think any like Zoomer celebrities have necessarily achieved this yet, but is when you don't have to live your private life publicly, like on social media, right? Like the ultimate sign of status is like, I'm not on social media.
It's like Leonardo DiCaprio. I feel like he's really like, he does not talk about himself ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was thinking also about sort of like the transition of Ryan Gosling, who like in 2010, do you remember how like during the sort of like as people were like going crazy over Ryan Gosling, there'd be these videos of like Ryan Gosling stops a fight on the streets of NYC.
That video is so funny.
Which to this day I'm convinced was faked and is like a total PR plant. I mean, I thought this at the time, and to this day I still think that all that like Ryan Gosling spotted like giving a flower to an old lady, like all this was like fake PR.
The funniest part of that video is the girl filming goes, "That's the guy from The Notebook."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because that's how real people talk, Sammie. That's how real people talk. You know,
That's funny.
I think it's a fake video. But regardless, he's transitioned to the point where like he and Eva Mendes, right? Like they lived their life like in pretty...
Yeah, he like fell off the face of the earth when he had kids, which like makes total sense. Like, you know. Yeah,
for sure. But I'm saying like that is a testament to his status. Like he utilized the internet to like become America's sweetheart, and now he's like sort of retired from that part of his life. But that is different from sort of like the few artists who not only prioritize their private life over their public life, but they were able to utilize the sense of mystery around their private life as like a part of their art. You know, I think Paul Rubens is in that category when we're talking about sort of like Prince or like even like Stanley Kubrick, like Once Upon a Time, where it's like he and what was so cool was in this article, it was very obvious that although it came from a pained and tortured and kind of intuitive talent in Rubens. He was self-aware about his capability of creating mystery and mystique and aura around himself. And I think he was sort of compelled by it. He didn't exactly have control of this talent, but he was certainly aware of it and kind of wielded it as a weapon, which is so fascinating in somebody as talented as him.
Yeah, it's really, I think I was a little young for Pee-wee's. Like, I'm aware of Pee-wee's Playhouse and like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and all that stuff, but I think I was like a little young to be like caught up in the real kind of meat of it. But it was interesting kind of watching these old videos of him, because I didn't really realize like he never did interviews as himself. Like, he was always Pee-wee, which is sort of insane. Like, I can't think of anyone who really does that. Like, even like Tim Robinson is like, he's himself in interviews, or like as himself as he can be, I guess. You know, we don't know him, but like it was just really fascinating that he was like always in character, you know?
I'm not even sure if someone could do that in today's day and age. You know what I mean? Where it's like he took an Andy Kaufman type performance art to his public facing persona. I mean, is there anybody that you can think of that does that like today? I mean,
what's the name of the clown from Atlanta? You know what I'm talking about? Oh my gosh, what's his freaking name? The really tall clown. Oh my god, this is gonna kill me. Oh, Puddles Pity Party. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
But he's not as he's obviously not as famous as Pee Wee Herman. But he's like he's a singer and entertainer. He's based in Atlanta. He's like a really sad clown, and then he like sings and da 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 and like performs. The guy's name is Michael Geyer, I think is how you say his name. But I have like, you know, I was like recording something at WABE like a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about when Puddles the clown came in to like do an interview, and he came and like I think it was, sorry if I'm getting this wrong, guys, but I think it was he came and like pretended to be Puddles' manager, like on mic. Like he would like sit there and like the interviewer would ask Puddles a question, because Puddles doesn't talk, he like murmurs, you know, and then like the guy who is Puddles would like listen and be like, oh yeah, and like try to repeat the question and then like come back and say, well, Puddles says this, but it's just one person there so for radio. But like,
is some incredible clowning there. But I do feel like that's still like fitting his bit of being a clown.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this force is actually like a little bit more insidious, because I do think that a lot of these sort of like popular sort of YouTube and like streamer type personalities like started off by playing a character, and instead like they've pretended themselves into becoming the character. Yeah, and like ties back to more sort of like the Kurt Vonnegut idea of like, be careful who you pretend to be, like that's who you become.
Right.
So, but I don't see anybody sort of wielding a character as performance art, and in the way that Paul Rubens did, and you know, I loved everything about him. I even loved it when he was being a dick. Like honestly, he was being a dick to this filmmaker. But
yeah, he was. I enjoyed his like
it.
Matt Wolf's. I like Matt Wolf's sort of like honesty about it. He was like, yeah, he like pissed me off a lot. Like, I felt like
it was very clear that by the end of this, it's very clear that by the end of this, he was done with Paul Rubens.
Right. Well, it's also
and loved him.
Yes, and loved him so much. And it's so he kind of, the way this article ends and the way the film kind of ends is like Paul, he went like no contact with Fat Wolf for a really long time. Like, it sounds really stressful, honestly.
Like 2 years.
Yeah. Something crazy. And finally calls him and he's like, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to do the final interview. Like, let's go. And he's like, yes, like finally, like awesome. Like, and then he gets like a text from his producer, I think, who was like, is this real? And it was the news that Paul Rubens had died. And so like, it's just so emotional. Like, I almost started crying. Like, I was like, I can't imagine having been like locked up in this such a whirlwind of a production with this very like difficult genius of a person, and then like to have it kind of end that way. It was really sad. But yeah.
But I think definitely has the setup for being a pretty amazing piece of art. So I'm excited to watch. And it definitely got me thinking that I need to break out the old Pee-wee DVDs.
Break them out.
See if they still work, man. Those are some old discs.
Anyway, let's move forward. We got one little fun thing to do here. So David Lynch, all of his stuff is going up on auction. And I thought it would be fun. Well, I'm sure like his family got some of his stuff, but you know, I thought it would be fun if we went through. I have like a list of things where I was like, if I had the money, yeah, I'd probably buy that.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any? I can go first, or if you want to, if you have anything that you're interested in.
Like, this is like a lot of shit. Like,
there's so much. I didn't go through it all. I couldn't. Like,
there was so much shit.
Yeah.
There's so much shit. Let's just give an overview. There's a lot of great mid-century furniture on this auction.
That he made, I believe. Like,
yes.
Which is pretty impressive. Yeah.
Well, actually, there was a lot of other stuff that he had good taste in sort of Danish furniture design. A lot of it was sort of Danish designers. A lot of film equipment. So a lot to offer here. What caught your fancy? You go first, Sammie.
So just in general, it's more of a general opinion. His record and book collection is like incredible. It's so vast, and like you can see like the spine of the books, like they're all kind of like packaged in little lots, and you can see the spines of them, and they're all like amazing. He has these like books just about Isabella Rossellini, which I was like, well, I kind of want those. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Those were a hot ticket item. I saw the Rossellini
hot ticket item for
book
sure.
Collection.
He also has a lot of instruments. There's a custom 5-neck guitar that looks pretty rad. I really liked that one.
Do you play guitar?
No. Well, kind of, but not really. I used to. I haven't practiced in a long time. But I could learn if I had a 5-neck guitar.
Waiting for the 5 necks.
Yeah. Or I could gift it to somebody. I don't know. Or like frame it, you know. The other interesting thing, there's the unfinished screenplay of Ronnie Rocket is in here, which is his like big, famous, unfinished, never done project. And I think that would be super fun to have. I am a big Lost Highway fan, so I really like the little Lost Highway prop matchbooks, and the script is in there too. There's like a crazy like DVD set of just Eraserhead, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of Eraserhead ephemera.
Yes. There's a little production, his like little office telephone. It says the David Lynch like over on the receiver, which I thought was really cute. Those are just some of them. I have some more I could go through, but do you see anything that you'd be like, oh, I'd love that?
Well, I'll be honest, like, and I certainly didn't want to like really get into this like in the wake of his death or anything.
Sure. Are you not a David Lynch head, really?
No.
My gosh.
I love the character of David Lynch. I have the utmost respect for David Lynch. Most of his stuff is just not for me. Like, it's just,
I think that's really fair. Like, to be quite honest, like, it's so fair.
I do recognize Mulholland Drive as a masterpiece. I do really enjoy that film. I like The Elephant Man quite a bit, but a lot of the like most core sort of Lynch stuff is just not for me. So I don't feel any sort of like strong like, oh, I just have to own this shoe from Lost Highway. I don't feel that way. But my bargain, I love a bargain, Sammie. And let me tell you, the bargains were in the woodworking department. So, so here you could get these things basically at cost right now. If you bid you could get David Lynch's table router for $900. You could get David Lynch's bandsaw for $600. You could get David Lynch's spindle sander for $450. And then my personal favorite, and this is one that I might actually bid on this. You could get David Lynch's 2 air compressors for $350. That is a bargain. And just how funny would it be to say like, yeah, you see that over there? David Lynch's air compressor.
That would be pretty good, honestly. The furniture is quite lovely. There are these like little wooden stools that I thought were so cute. I was like, oh, need some furniture possibly, but probably not. But
yeah, how many days does the auction have left?
I have no idea. I'm looking at it now. There aren't, well, I should say those are just books. It shows you like how many bids have been put in. Yeah. The books are not doing well. You people, come on, bid on the books. There's like way more bids for like his camera equipment.
Yeah.
People want
David Lynch's like broken DV camcorders and shit.
Oh yeah. There's 21 bids for his home espresso machine.
Well, that's a really nice espresso machine. I actually looked it up.
Very nice.
I saw that espresso machine because, like, I'm really into espresso right now. I just came back from Italy, obviously, and I was like, "Is it time to upgrade my espresso machine?" Because I have like a $100 espresso machine, which gets the job done, but it's not great. Yeah. I looked up David Lynch's espresso machine, $1,000, just brand new. So I don't know what it's up to now, but it's probably
up to $7,000.
Oh God! Well, there you go. That's just insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. This hot pink couch is also pretty cool, but.
Yeah,
they have good taste. You know, you can also get the Winkies menus from Mulholland Drive.
Yeah. To tie this back to the Paul Rubens thing, Matt Wolf describes in his first Zoom with Rubens, he's like, "There's this." I met him, and in the background of his Skype call, there was this beautiful room full of mid-century furniture. I said to him, "Wow, I love your house," and Rubens said, "It's just a picture. Like, it's not my house."
I found on the internet. I'm not showing you where I live.
Yeah.
I don't know you.
It might have been the picture Paul Rubens used was from David Lynch's house, judging from this auction.
100%. Especially, you can also get his taxidermy deer heads, which is so creepy.
Yes.
Oh, God.
I've always wanted to be a collector of botched taxidermy. I think this would be like something that I would get a great deal of joy out of. I pitched this to Shub, my wife, once, and I got a hard no. I got an absolute no way. I think I showed her this like fucked up taxidermy of a squirrel I found on eBay for about $50, and she said, "Oh my God, absolutely not." So
I'm on
yet another dream that must be deferred.
You can't spend $7,000 on 2 taxidermy deer heads that were once owned by David Lynch.
No.
Unfortunately.
That's okay. I can let that go. I'll always have my air compressors.
Yeah. All right. See, happy note. It's fun to end things on a fun note.
Yes. We may not be able to believe in humanity, but we can always believe in David Lynch's
eclectic collection of items that he once owned.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, this has been great, Sammie. Do you have any articles coming out? Any interviews? Any reviews?
I don't. Well, I'm going to be interviewing. Well, I don't know if I want to say that yet, because what if he cancels? I'll say that after I have the interview. But I've got a couple of movie reviews coming out this week. So I'm seeing Ballerina tonight. Let's go.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And I'm also seeing The Phoenician.
Masterpiece.
What if it is? You never know. I'm also seeing.
You are so optimistic. It drives me crazy sometimes.
I can't be not optimistic. Like, I have to do my job. I want every movie to be good. Like this, I just do. Like, you know, like, so I'm not gonna say it's bad until I see it. You know? God. All right. But I'm also seeing The Phoenician Scheme tomorrow, so the new Wes Anderson, which I am optimistic about. I'm pretty excited. So we have those 2 coming this week. And then next week, I'm seeing The Materialist, so that'll be coming your way. Very excited.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Well, if you are in the greater New York City area, come through the Stewart Cinema in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, this Friday, June 6th at 7 p.m. Withdrawal is having its New York premiere. It's going to be very exciting. I will be there. Lead actress Millie Rose Evans will be there. We'll be doing a Q&A afterward. We'll be hanging out after that. I'll also be in the city all weekend, so if you're in New York City, hit me up. I'll have time. So really, really looking forward to that. I've got some future Withdrawal screenings to announce soon. I can't quite announce them yet, but that is also very exciting. So we are slowly but surely making the rounds, making our way across the world, maybe. So that will be very exciting. Sammie, this has been fantastic. As always, love talking movies with you. If you enjoyed this conversation, please be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review. Hit us with the 5 stars. Leave a little note. Leave a few kind words. It really goes a long way to helping us out. You can subscribe to us, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, all the bullshit. You can find us on Instagram at Crash Zoom Podcast. You can email us, crashzoompod@gmail.com. That is crashzoompod@gmail.com. Tell us, would you bid on David Lynch's air compressors? And if so, how much? I'd love to know what the top end of the market is on those before I place my bid. In the meantime, that is all for this week. And until next week, I will talk to you.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.